Good afternoon. Like most of my videos and slideshows, this is just going to be a slight explanation with some extemporaneous narration. No script here, but I am going to show you quite a few really cool things. Starting with this page here, as I've said for many, many years, the US National Weather Service provides some of the best offshore high seas marine weather forecasts available worldwide. They're kind of the gold standard. Together with the UK Met Office, the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, the French Met Office, the German Weather Office, as well as those of New Zealand, Japan, Greece, and Russia and China. They provide the entire world for all of the ocean's marine forecasts, the US being the most prominent one of all. This web page right here is where I find where all of the charts and graphs and images are that you're going to see, as well as the links to the other services. This here is the page where you're going to find how they're broadcast by the United States Coast Guard. And again, I'm going to show you mainly the WeatherFax charts. These are the weather charts drawn by human meteorologists. These are gentlemen and ladies who have literally decades of experience in offshore maritime meteorology. The U.S. is responsible under international agreement, going back decades before I was born, actually, but the SOLAS agreements, Safety of Life at Sea conventions, and the agreements signed, or I should say, required certain nations of the world. These are the world's first world developed nations of seafaring nations. The U.S. was responsible for this turquoise area of the North Atlantic here, as well as this yellow area of the Pacific. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the U.S. has taken it upon itself for many decades to provide weather information for this entire area that's underneath these black lines here, all the way over the North Atlantic, all the way over to about 10 degrees east, as well as the tropical North Atlantic, as well as the entire central and northern Pacific and much of the South Pacific, with Australia covering most of the rest of the Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean, as well as Chile and Peru and Argentina down here covering their areas of the Southern Atlantic and Southern Pacific Ocean here as well. Just going to start off with a satellite image here from just a couple of days ago. This is just 3 days ago. Here is Hurricane Erin here off the U.S. East Coast churning away. And reminder, I did a playlist on YouTube. I still have this playlist up on YouTube where I showed a lot of the abilities that you can use with the WeatherFax system. And of course, I'm a bit old fashioned, and I showed paper weather charts. And I know a lot of you are certainly thinking, oh God, this guy's stuck in the past. So you're using laptops or PCs and tablets and stuff. And that's what this video is going to be about. I'm not going to show you any paper charts here. Also, not going to be in front of the nav station. I'm doing this at the house with my laptop. Again, here is the WeatherFax machine that I have on board my boat that I use primarily for my primary offshore and high seas weather source. I'm going to start out covering most of the North Atlantic using U.S. Coast Guard WeatherFax broadcast coming out of Boston. This is their schedule here. I know some of you might want to be trying to read this, but you can just go to this web page right here, and here is where you're going to get the schedule. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you the weather charts that you can get. Oh, and one other thing here. This is JVCOM 32. This is free software, and I emphasize free. It's very well done, and it's free software. You can make a donation, and you can, which is what I've done, and it's very nice software. Download it. There's other software that works for Macs. I think Black Cat is what works for Macs. But if you're running a PC or a PC-based system, something like that, a Windows-based system, the JVCOM software and your PC and a small, simple radio is all you're going to need. No subscriptions, no satellite system, no special modems, no $2,000 for a modem, nothing like that. This gentleman here, Jordan, He did a really nice video about 7 years ago, I think it was 6, 7 years ago, on doing exactly what I'm showing you here, taking a little $150 shortwave radio, plugging his laptop computer in, and this is the YouTube page right here of this video. It's a very short video, it's less than 10 minutes long, and he shows you pretty much what you need to do. Again, starting with Boston here, here is a 24-hour surface forecast from, as I said, just from a couple of days ago. And you can see Hurricane Aaron here. They were showing max winds at this point of 90 knots, gust to 110. And it was pretty intense, no question about it. And here's another low up here. There's a gale. Here is the UK and Ireland. Over here, of course, is France and Spain, Portugal, and this is Africa down here. So anyway, this is covering the entire North Atlantic from about 18 degrees, 17 degrees north, all the way up past 60, 67 degrees north. Again, here is Puerto Rico here. Here is Hispaniola, Haiti and Dominican Republic, Cuba. Here are the Bahamas. And right underneath this, just to the left of the 60-degree west mark, are the northern part of the Caribbean islands, the Antilles. You'll see here St. Martin, Antigua, that kind of thing. So this is a 24-hour surface forecast here. And I'm going to show you a 24-hour wind and wave forecast. And you can see the wind barbs here. And of course, here is Hurricane Aaron. And they're showing seas to 17 meters. That's pretty intense there. These charts, these wind and wave charts, also show right here the Gulf Stream positions. Unfortunately, with Hurricane Aaron off the U.S. East Coast here, these are the forecast positions of the Gulf Stream here. And it's very difficult to see on this chart. Of course, if you were out there in a hurricane, you wouldn't really be too concerned where the Gulf Stream is. But I'll show you in the preceding charts here. Oh, and these are just a description of the wind barbs in case you're unaware. You know, one barb, 10 knots, half a barb is 5, so that's 15, 20, that kind of thing. Here's a 48-hour surface position, and you can see this is Hurricane Aaron, and you've seen they've drawn an arrow and an X to show you where it will be in roughly in about 72 hours out. So we'll see. Go to the next chart, and we'll see if they're good at that. Here's your 48-hour wind and wave forecast. And again, here you're starting to see these lines here that show the Gulf Stream position. Here's your 72-hour surface chart. Here's your 72-hour wind and wave chart. And now you're really starting to see the Gulf Stream positions. And you can see the dashed line here and the solid line. That's the north wall is a solid line, and the dashed line is the southern wall. And you can see right here it says southern wall, dotted line. And I'll highlight this a little bit better here for you so you can see the south wall is down here and the north wall is right up here, the Gulf Stream. And a 96-hour surface forecast. And again, here this forecast is valid for the 25th of August, and you can see this is now an extratropical, they call it post-tropical cyclone Aaron, and you can see it up here. This is basically to the west of Ireland, and here we are back here in Florida. And now you're starting to see where you can actually see where the Gulf Stream is on this chart here. Unfortunately, when you've got a big storm around in here, it's kind of superseding that. This is a detailed a detailed Atlantic surface analysis. And again, what we're talking about here in the, we're talking about, this is the western part of the North Atlantic. So we've got Florida here, here's the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, and here's Labrador, Nova Scotia, that kind of thing. Still showing Aaron here, of course, off the New England coast. Here is the eastern end of the Atlantic in a fairly detailed surface analysis as well. And every day they put out, or twice a day, of course, they put out a detailed wave analysis. And by the way, just so you know, all of these charts here, if you notice, they have a issue time and a valid time. So this is a 4-day forecast. So of course it's valid 4 days after the issue time. And these charts are updated every 6 hours. They're broadcast every 6 hours in an updated format. So if you miss a chart in the morning, you can grab it in the afternoon, you can grab it in the evening, you can grab it late at night, that kind of thing. And it'll be an updated chart. Oh, and this is, again, this is just a North Atlantic GOES satellite image here. Again, this is just from a couple days ago, or actually from the 21st, which today, by the way, and just in case anybody's wondering, this is Sunday, the 24th of August, 2015 or 2025. And this image was just from a few days ago, and you can see Hurricane Erin here turning off the U.S. East Coast. Now, if you're concentrating more on westbound passage, say from Europe back across the Atlantic, or you're looking at more tropical weather, you're interested more in tropical weather down in the Caribbean. The U.S. Coast Guard WeFax broadcast out of New Orleans covers most of the tropical Atlantic and the lower latitudes. You can see here an image. Here's Hurricane Erin here, but you can see the satellite image. This is 10 degrees south. So here's the equator here, 10 degrees north, 20, 30, 40. And here, of course, is Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Eastern Caribbean islands here. You can see we've got a tropical wave here. I believe this is Invest 99L, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, this was Invest 99L, excuse me. This was what turned into be Fernand. Fernand, I believe it was, and this is 99L here. Again, a close-up of Erin here. And again, here, this is the eastern tropical Atlantic. And again, here is the equator here. So we're from about 5 degrees south all the way up past to about 50 degrees north. Here is Spain, Portugal, France. Here's the tip of Great Britain here. This, of course, is Africa. And you can see we've got a tropical wave, and this slight curved line here, of course, is a solid line denotes a tropical wave. If it was a dashed curved line, it would be a trough. And you can see they're showing these tropical waves literally tracking across the Atlantic here. This is the Western tropical surface analysis. And again, here is Hispaniola and Cuba and Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and South America here and Panama. You can see here's this tropical wave and another one, and they just track right across in a train. Here's a sea state analysis from a few days ago. And you can see Hurricane Erin is centered up about here. They were showing 14.5 meter waves right in this area here. That's 45 feet or so. 50 feet, I guess. Waves there. And only 2 meter waves down here. Here's a 24-hour surface forecast for the tropical Atlantic. And again, here's a tropical wave here. Here's another one here, another one here, another one here, as they go on. Here's the 24-hour wind and wave forecast chart. And again, the winds, here out of the east, here's south, southeast, here's southeast, and these are coming out of the south. So pretty nice weather along in here. Here's a 48-hour forecast chart, again, showing the tropical waves. We've also got kind of a stationary front that's stalling out along the Florida-Georgia border, just north of the Gulf Coast here. Here's a 48-hour wind and wave chart. 72-hour surface forecast, still showing that stalled front. Here's a 72-hour wind and wave chart. This time of year in the tropical North Atlantic, the Hurricane Center provides what they refer to as tropical cyclone development charts or tropical cyclone tracking charts. And the Coast Guard and the National Weather Service, I believe, provides these to the Coast Guard in lieu of a 96-hour forecast during hurricane season. Again, this is just a wrap-up of what the more southern area of the North Atlantic looks like here on the satellite image. Now, I'm just going to show this briefly here, but those of you that are U.S. mariners are certainly probably familiar with these brown or orange shaded areas right along the coastline. And that is our NOAA weather radio, our VHF weather radio coverage that provides coastal weather forecast, generally from 0 to 20 miles offshore and 20 to 60 miles. Many of you may not be aware of these darker shaded, the blue and the darker shaded green areas. And this is where the U.S. National Weather Service and U.S. Coast Guard broadcast for the Weather Service offshore waters forecasts. And these are fairly detailed forecasts. The U.S., of course, out here is the high seas forecast. These are fairly generalized forecasts. The general analysis and forecast out to 2 days are all of these areas out here. And again, the U.S., and these are broadcast by voice and by text. The rest of what I was showing you, and the rest of what I am showing you here, these are images that come transmitted by WeatherFax, by weather facsimile. Very simple to use. Just plug your computer into your radio and download some free software before you do that, and you're ready to go. But if you don't have the software and you just want to listen to a voice broadcast, well, you can listen to very detailed weather here in these darker shaded areas, or more generalized forecast out here in these lighter shaded areas. Some of you may be familiar with these voice broadcasts sound like. Here is high seas analysis, and certainly no one's going to want to be able to read all of this, but I'll just show you to you here on the thing. This is the high sea forecast from yesterday, from Saturday. And these forecasts cover very large sections of the ocean, and they cover 24 and 48-hour forecasts. And again, that's what these areas out here, all these large, lightly shaded areas. And if you're just interested in what it kind of sounds like, anyway, I'm sure some of you are familiar with that already. This video is not about the voice broadcast, but this video is about the weather facts, the weather charts. And if I have to say anything specific, I want to make sure you understand that these nations of the world, the US, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, France, Greece, Germany, Russia, China, Japan, these are generally first world nations and seafaring nations that provide the marine and offshore waters forecast, the high seas forecast for all of the world's shipping, for navies, for merchant ships, as well as for us pleasure boaters. And what the US does is pretty remarkable. All of these areas inside these black lines, all of this here inside these black lines, the U.S. National Weather Service and the Coast Guard HF broadcast provide weather charts drawn by experienced human maritime meteorologists. Yes, they do use computer model data to come up with their forecast, but they also use a lot of experience. They also take a lot of ship reports, buoy reports, aircraft observations, as well as the computer model forecast. And they incorporate those into their hand-drawn charts and maps. And that's what you've been seeing. These are just black and white things. The raw computer data, a lot of people will buy that, and they'll package it with some nice fancy graphics. And companies as PredictWind and Ocens and a couple other companies sell it to end users. But there's no meteorologist involved there. It's just raw computer data. Anyway, as I said, these nations of the world cover the entire globe's oceans, but it's primarily the US, UK, France, Australia, Chile, Argentina, Russia, China, and Japan, and they cover most of the world's shipping areas. Now, let's say you want to go across the Pacific, okay? Let me just go back one quick second. I was talking about going across the Atlantic here, Well, what if you want to go across the Pacific? What are you going to do? Well, many people will leave from Baja, from La Paz or Cabo. Some people leave from Puerto Vallarta down here. Occasionally, people will leave from the San Diego area, and they'll head down here to what is this? About the Marquesas Islands here. I think they're right about. Oh, no, they're probably right about here, and then they'll head further across. But you can see from this area here, you can see you've got U.S. WeFax broadcasts that'll cover you. You leave from Panama to the Galapagos, and across. You leave from Mexico, across. You leave from San Diego and across. You leave from Honolulu. Just about anywhere you're going here in the north, central, or most of the southern Pacific, you get this coverage. And once you get over to this area here, once you're in the Solomon Islands and that, or you're coming over to Australia and that, the Australian government provides for their Bureau of Meteorology and their broadcast, they provide that as well. Let's just take a look at what you get from the U.S. here. This is the U.S. Coast Guard for WeFax chart, excuse me, WeFax schedule out of Honolulu, and I'll just zoom in on this so you can just see what we're talking about here. And it's the same kind of charts that we had for the Atlantic, so no major difference here. And again, this is the website. I'm just going to go back so you can see this is the web address here. If you want to jot that down, that's the web address there. If you want to get it, okay. This is just an image of the northern Pacific. Excuse me, northern or central Pacific, I should say. And of course, here we have California, Baja, and here's northern Mexico here. And this takes us all the way pretty much down to 10 degrees latitude. Here is a close-up of the central Pacific, which covers, here's the equator right here. Here's 0, okay? And here is 10, 20, 30 degrees south. This right here, this is the northern island of New Zealand. So here we are looking at, this is Baja, California. So this is Cabo and La Paz, Mexico. And here, right on the edge here, is Puerto Vallarta, Banderas Bay, Mexico. And on the other side of this chart is New Zealand. And of course, between here, you've got the Marquesas, you've got French Polynesia and all of that, the Solomon Islands all up in here. Oh, and this also does cover you well up past 50 degrees north as well. So, and there are other charts and other images for the Northern Pacific or Alaska and all that they broadcast out of Point Reyes, California, as well as Kodiak, Alaska. Here's a more close-up image. I know that was here is New Zealand. As I was saying, here's the northern island of New Zealand here. And this is, roughly, what are we at, about 175, something like that. Anyway, here is a close-up of the tropical East Pack, as they call it. This is, of course, La Paz, Mexico is here, and Puerto Vallarta and all that. And again, I'm going to show you the weather charts, the actual weather charts that they're broadcast. But I just want to make sure we understand this. Most of them are coming out of Hawaii here. These are the ones I'm going to show you. They also transmit out of Point Reyes, California, which is just north of San Francisco. And they also have Kodiak, Alaska. Most of the Alaskan charts and the Arctic charts are broadcast out of Alaska at Point Reyes. Point Reyes covers most of the central and northern Pacific, and most of the central and southern Pacific is broadcast here out of Hawaii. But they still have the same charts are broadcast out of Point Reyes as well. So if you're leaving from California or La Paz or something like that, you can get your broadcast from Point Reyes or from Honolulu. Generally, the broadcasts out of Honolulu, when you're down south of California, are generally going to be easier to receive with stronger signals. I'm not specifically pointing this out to go over in detail, but just like we were showing on the East Coast, these darker shaded areas are very detailed 4-day out forecast for these areas provided by the US National Weather Service. Now, it's very interesting because you'll notice here that including in the Caribbean, what we showed on the other chart, you notice all of these are coastal Mexico, Central America, Panama, South America, even Ecuador, all the way out to the Galapagos. And these are provided by the US National Weather Service, as well as all these broadcasts, all of these forecasts, all of this stuff. Okay, here's the broadcast schedule again out of Honolulu. And here is just a surface analysis chart. This is basically covering the East Pack, what they call the Southern East Pack. This is taking us down to about 20 degrees south and up to about 40 degrees north. So this is a great chart to start out your voyage with if you're leaving on the Pacific. And again, here as you're leaving from Panama, or you're leaving from Puerto Vallarta or La Paz or even San Diego. This is a sea state analysis for that area. Here's a 24-hour surface forecast. And again, as we were showing on the earlier charts, these tropical waves this time of year going across, which hopefully you're not making a passage in the middle of hurricane season. 24-hour wind and wave forecast, 24-hour surface forecast, 48-hour wind and wave forecast, 72-hour surface forecast, 72-hour wind and wave forecast. And before I get to this next chart, again, this is the East Pacific. This is the the east, the Northeast Pacific Ocean, I guess is what you would call it. Anyway, this is the Central Pacific. And you can see here we're 130, 140, 150, 160, 170 degrees west, come up to the 180th parallel, and we've got 170 east, 160 east, 150 east, 140 east, all the way to 130 east. And again, we've got some tropical waves coming across here. And this is a little easier chart to look at, the 24-hour surface forecast. And again, way over here, here's Australia. This is Australia. Here's Brisbane, Australia. Okay. Now, New Zealand is down here, slightly off the chart here. Okay. Here, if you were heading all the way over to Australia, this is a wonderful chart to use. The next chart you're going to see is even more impressive. Okay. This is your 24-hour wind and wave forecast chart. And this is basically covering what I refer to as the central and tropical Pacific. And this is covering from 30 degrees south to 30 degrees north. And this is covering from about 120 degrees west all the way over to 130 degrees east. Here is Brisbane, Australia. This is the outline of Australia here. Port Moresby, this is Papua New Guinea here. Okay. And down here, again, a little bit off the chart, you can't quite see New Zealand is right down here. But again, here's Tahiti, Papeete, Tahiti, that kind of thing. San Diego is just off the chart, just up here with San Diego's like 32 north and 117 west, something like that. So here's 120. This is 120 west and 30 north is right there at the tip of my arrow. So San Diego's up here. La Paz and Point of Art is about 600, 800 miles this way. So it's probably about 500 to 700 miles off the chart here. But again, we showed those earlier charts. And again, here's just a surface, 48-hour surface forecast, 40-hour wind and wave chart, 72-hour surface forecast, 72-hour wind and wave chart. If you're traveling somewhere else in the Pacific, as I said, about a Point Reyes on Alaska, they also cover. So if you're going to the northern Pacific, if you're going to Japan or something like that, you'd probably be wanting to use Point Reyes. Also, I would also like to highlight that, as I said, that the U.S. covers a great deal, but so, of course, does Australia, the U.K., and as I was showing you here, this is just a general, I don't know how to draw a perfectly great circle on my charts, but anyway, this is just a generalized area of what Australia covers with their high seas voice broadcast, as well as their WeatherFax charts as well. And again, if you're sailing out of, say, La Paz or Puerto Vallarta, and you're heading down here, heading across, going to, whether once you're getting into this area here, you're already probably going to be using the Australian weather forecast anyway, but you still got good U.S. coverage all the way here to the coast of Australia and into the eastern end of Indonesia as well. This is, by the way, all of this information that I'm giving you is new 2025 information, updated. Unfortunately, New Zealand is still providing voice weather broadcast, but they are no longer transmitting. New Zealand's no longer transmitting their HF weather facts. That just happened a year and a half ago. Some was saying it was due to COVID, but they stopped, in end of 2023. So I don't think it has anything to do with COVID. I think it's just a matter of budget cuts worldwide. But this website here will get you your worldwide marine weather facts broadcast schedules. Of course, the U.S. government provides their own schedules. So does Australia. So does the U.K. as well. But this you should download and keep in your docs files here. Speaking of Australia, here's the frequencies for Australia. These are their voice weather frequencies here, and here are their WeatherFax frequencies here. Quite frankly, here in the US, I have copied them, of their voice weather on the 12 meg, and I've got really good charts here on 11, 10, and 11 meg. And the Australians do a really nice job. This is a very difficult page for you to look at. I was going to put it sideways, and I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. But this is just an example of the Australian WeatherFax schedule. And this web page here is what you'll get to. If you simply do a search for Australia Bureau of Meteorology WeatherFax, you'll get this. I was unable to spend the time and download Australian WeFax charts like I did for the US, but as you can see, they're quite extensive. Their broadcast schedule shows that they do cover the area quite well, both the Indian Ocean as well as the Pacific Ocean. And out of England, GYA out of Northwood, England here, this is their schedule. The schedule that I had online was a weird color and it just didn't look very good. So I just grabbed this one off the PDF file. Here is a web page that shows all the charts that the UK sends. And you'll notice the UK is, because of their latitude and because of how quickly storms travel across the oceans at those latitudes, they do 12-hour updates for their wind and their waves and stuff. They also have separate, they do surface charts and they also do winds. So they do 10-minute wind velocity charts, and they do precipitation, visibility, sea surface temperature. They also do swell height and direction charts. And these are separate. The US combines the wind and wave charts together. The UK broadcasts them separately. I'm going to show you these just in pretty quick succession, but this is the website that you can get to if you want to download them or you want to see them in more detail. Here is their surface analysis, and here is their prognosis for a day, 2, 3, 4, and here is their wind chart. Again, this is not wind and wave. The U.S. combines, and this is just their wind chart for 1 day, 2 day, 3, 4, and 5 day wind charts. And then, I'm sorry, this is 5. And then the wave or swell directions. And again, you can see here, this is from yesterday. Here is extratropical storm Erin, or I'm not sure if it was still categorized as a hurricane yesterday, but today it's an extratropical storm. And here are the forecast was for today, and here is tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Again, just to recap here, what I'm basically showing you is the U.S. National Weather Service HF WeatherFax charts. These are weather charts drawn by human meteorologists based on their decades of experience that cover the North Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic, the Central and South Pacific, or some of the South Pacific, as well as some of the New Zealand charts as well. This is again, this is the playlist that I put together that this video will hop into. I think if you watch this one and the rest of this playlist, you'll have just about everything you'll need. Again, this is the website where you're going to find all the information you could possibly need about offshore, high seas, weather, dissemination, and forecast, covering most of the world. You can find links here to the UK, to Australia, as well as to the worldwide schedule. And, if you start with any website, and I'm not trying to tell you to watch my videos. I'm just saying if you start with any website, if you take away just one thing, remember weather.gov/marine. If you type in weather.gov/marine into your browser, you're going to get this page. And although it's no high, there's no fancy graphics, there's no GIF images, there's no JavaScript, there's no BS. It's just a lot of words and a lot of hyperlinks that'll get you anywhere you want to go around the World Wide Web, or around the world actually, and get you the weather information that you need for sailing offshore. The key thing to remember here in all of this is that this gets you not only actual, real experienced human meteorologists drawing these charts and providing these forecasts, but they're doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it's all broadcast to you for free. You do not need a special high-tech radio. You do not need a $2,000 modem. You do not need a satellite service. You do not need a subscription. You do not need any of that. It's pretty simple and pretty easy. Again, Jordan here, this gentleman here, put together a nice little video, and I'm going to put this link down in here as well, and I'll add his video into the playlist so you'll be able to see it more easily and how it all works. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I thank you all very much for your time, and I'm sorry if my narration was a little bit over the top and a little boring at times, but as I said, no script, no notes, just talking off the top of my